Yeah, there you go. There you go. That's important. Gotta stay hydrated, especially with 100
Yes.
degrees there.
Yes.
Right. Cool. So yeah, let's wait for a minute or so, right, guys? Let people drop in. Maybe in the chat, let know where you're logging in from. I, as always, from the lovely Sudermeer. You, Doc, you're from. You're not in your
Berlin,
hometown, Mark.
Berlin at the moment. Yeah, yeah. Here for a conference. Couldn't find a proper spot over there, so I ran back to the hotel, doing the podcast right now here, and then going back for the after party, and probably not going back at the hotel anymore.
Sounds like a wise choice.
Yeah.
Right. Cool. So yeah, welcome everybody to the Grow to Togetherness series. Over the last couple of years, we've had like 20 episodes or so. More than 2,000 people joined over this period. We had, including our two guests now, 50 GTM leaders joining. It's the fireside chat for GTM leaders powered by Pavilion, and all about helping you or your GTM team to stay relevant in the game. As always, the conversations are bold, open, and activating. Real life stories, battle tested, bringing in some POVs, having some shoulders to cry on, and some good laughs as well. Discussing serious topics. Always room for a joke. So today, the topic will all be about growth at what cost. So we will dive and delve into the dark side of efficiency and AI that no one talks about. And I brought quite some experience here, right, Doc? Or we brought quite some experience here. I think totally combined. It's I'm actually the young kid on the block here. It's 23 years of combined GTM Pavilion experience here. So we definitely have some stuff to tell, right? The good, the bad, and the ugly, probably.
100%, 100%. Yeah.
You bring it up with Jordan, like 10 plus years of dinosaur experience in Pavilion. So
Back in my day, it was revenue collectives.
Yeah.
Even before Sam.
I think I gave
It
Sam
was
the
actually
idea.
my idea.
Right, guys. So yeah, let's do some quick intros before we move into the conversation. So I will kick it off. So Jeroen Hendricks, I helped to transform 300 million euro Swedish listed business in a 5-year time frame, from 2080 to 50/50, from non-recurring to recurring revenue. Currently the founder of If Associates, GTM strategic boutique firm for growth to togetherness. I'm playing the real football, as we say here in Europe. And you can borrow it next year, Jordan, in the US, for more than 36 years. So I played against Clarence Seedorf's little brother when he watched the match. So he's like a famous Dutch football player. He won 3 Champions League trophies with 3 different clubs. And I'm 100% confident and sure that was not because he saw me playing. I hand it over to you, Doug.
Yeah, so I think I've been like part of like Pavilion for the last 5 years, in SaaS for the last 10 years, helped Folion, former Instant Magazine, grow both in Europe and in the US, and currently VP revenue of Nepal. Fun fact: I always say the same thing, which is not funny anymore. That you're looking at an AI version of myself right now. Could be the case, but it isn't the case. I think maybe a fun fact is that no, it's not really fun. I went bankrupt like when I was pretty young, and I think still that is funny because of that I moved into SaaS, and I think that's one of the best things that ever happened to me.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Koen, up to you.
Yeah, I think I'm now 5 years with Pavilion, and next to being a fan of Pavilion and a member, I'm leading the Benelux operations for a company called Personio. We are an HR tech platform, out of Munich, but in Europe. I always said I'm a very tiny startup in a very big scale up. We are 2,000 people, but I only run like tiny startup of like 35 people or more or less in the Benelux. So that's actually always very nice. In my 12, 13 years in SaaS, I actually always try to really scale after product market fit organizations, whether this is going to be in the Benelux or somewhere in Western Europe. Mainly being a satellite organization, so not like from the headquarters, which is always very interesting. Not always very easy, but very very interesting. So that's me. But I'm real. I'm not AI. So it'll be very weird to see myself as AI. But maybe next time.
Shall I go?
Yeah.
Cool. Yes. My name is Jordan. I'm calling in from New York City, right here in our office in Union Square. We are an in-office company. I know that's a debate for a later topic, I've been a Pavilion member for about 7 years. I was part of the early cohort when Sam was just getting things going right here in New York. It's been a super fun ride. It's been an incredible resource for my personal development and also from a network perspective. Doug and I go way back to the early days during the COVID times when we were doing these weekly, not for an audience, but for our own sanity. I'm now I'm running the US for a company called Magma Math, a Swedish-born business in the ed tech space. We're a Series A business at this point. Super exciting. I've been in software for I guess like 12 or 14 years now. Similar to Jerome, I actually have a football background, the European football. I was one of the rare people that did that in the United States growing up in Southern Virginia. I played at University of Virginia. I signed with DC United in Major League Soccer. I played 2 years in the USL before I didn't make the millions like I thought I would. And naturally, I pivoted into math technology. So here we are. Nice. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, Jordan. Love it. Yeah, those weekly breakfast sessions in New York were fantastic. Yeah.
Yes.
Up to you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Doug, you wanna quickly intro the topic and talk a little more about the promise of this session before we go into the convo?
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah. So typically, like almost every session about AI is hype sessions of like how fantastic it is, and it is fucking fantastic. And yes, this will be bleeped out because I will probably. But it's also like a reality check for GTM leaders to navigate growth through automation, but also pressure and pace, especially when it comes to also pressure potentially on your teams and on people. Because the reality is also that potentially with AI you can be more efficient, but what kind of like effect has that efficiency also on your team, right? So the goal eventually of this session is that people here will walk away with a clear view of what AI is actually doing for and to your teams, how to protect performance without sacrificing people, and also what it takes to grow sustainably and not just faster in an AI era. And that's why we obviously have these great leaders with Jordan and Koen on the call. Definitely going to explore a lot. Might go a little bit off topic, so I really want to urge the people that are on the call, like, ask questions, because we'll definitely prioritize those to dive in those. But we want to talk about how AI is reshaping expectations, what can get lost in the process, also potential hidden cost of efficiency, because it can also potentially break culture and specific clarity. We talk about tactics to align ambition with certain capacity before potentially. Sometimes we already see it with certain organization, burnout can take over because you will do more with less, in this case, people. And hopefully some tips from these two magnificent leaders about certain tools that will help them within their day-to-day. So without further ado, Jeroen, what is the first question for Jordan and Koen?
Yeah, so we all hear about around us, right? So a lot about efficiency and sometimes even going into more like an efficiency obsession almost, right? So what do you guys do you think is really driving this push towards, I would say almost hyper efficiency?
I'll take a stab.
Go Jordan, go Jordan.
Yeah, I got you. What is driving this toward? I mean, first off, like, I think we can state a couple obvious things. AI is the buzzword of B2B or of business at this point. And I would kind of go so far to say it has been for the last couple of years. I think there's this like concern, and I think part of it is real, that, you know, if you're not leveraging AI in, you know, numerous ways at this point, then you're falling behind. I don't disagree with that in a lot of senses, but I also think that just like anything, valuations, like I think it becomes the hype. And so I think when we're driving at like something that's so in your face, I mean, log into LinkedIn, start scrolling. Tell me that not every third post is about AI. And of course you're going to be wrong, because it is, right? I mean, if you've got someone like Jason Lemkin that's posting about AI every day, you're going to have everyone talking about AI every day. And so I think that's both good and a bit of a, you know, yellow flag. People say things, you know, the number of hot takes you hear about AI and how they're able to cut their workforce in third to really every two posts, to really like drive efficiency. I think that's real. And as I think we'll probably try to unpack a bit here, there are very real pieces, and there, to me, there's like two tracks of AI. One is like the AI in your own operations, and then one is AI in a product if you're working in a software product. And so I think those are probably two tracks that have two different opinions from myself.
Yeah, and to chime in here, right? Like AI, it's nice, but we are still need to talk about efficiency and growth in go-to-market. And I think what we have seen in the last couple of years is that to acquire $1 of new revenue, the cost involved to get there only increased. So it's not efficient anymore. And obviously, we are still way too much headcounted to that extent to acquire that €1. So I think now with the come of AI, which isn't even a buzzword, and we really need to break it down, right? If you really break it down specifically, there are so many different things when it comes to AI. Everyone is still, I think, at the level of generative AI, but everyone is talking about agentic AI. And I think let's be honest. I mean, Doc, you know way more on the topic than we do. But like how many companies have really implemented this to an extent that they really see this efficiency gain? Because everyone is talking about AI, but I also like, and I see the same thing, right, Jordan, on Jason Lemkin's post. Yeah, he's hyping on AI. But I also had the conversation last Thursday. I was invited by Fortuna Capital to speak on behalf of their GTM Summit, and I was talking about, let's not talk about AI in product. I think most of the companies by now really have AI in their product, in their tech stack. But let's look into AI in your go-to-market. Yeah. And AI in your go-to-market also means like, to what extent you as a company, as a leadership, as a GTM leadership, have you walked the walk? Do you facilitate processes, tooling, enablement? Are you really enable your people? Because one of the key things, which I said there as well, is like our people, I think 99% of our people in our teams, they use AI. But there's a very danger if our people are going to use AI, and let's be honest, everything is still very generic in that use case, and then going out into the market, outbound, proposals, like you name it, it's garbage. It's just garbage in, garbage out. So I also said there, like, I think it's really important that we as GTM leaders, and eventually leadership up to CEO, that we need to facilitate. We need to have a strategy how to apply AI in go-to-market. It's not an AI strategy. It is AI applied in go-to-market. And let's break it down and let's make it more practical. But like, at least that's my take. But I'm actually curious, Jeroen and Doc.
Yeah, 100%. I think a lot comes down to focus, right? So just as you're building a GTM plan, for example, right, for a year, you need to define certain use cases in it which are tied to a problem that are a real priority to fix. And I think as a GTM leader, it's important that you walk the talk, right? Or that's the phrase, right? So and I think a skill for that is very relevant to start building those AI workflows, right? So which are the steps in that you can have humans involved in it? Which steps do tools take? Do you train your agents in it, and so on? And then it's really critical to start actually driving the adoption towards the team, so that it doesn't overwhelm them, right? Because including myself, I think when I look back at myself a year ago or so, I was just chasing tools, right? And that's it's a lot comes down to, at least what I see it for myself and leading my own team, it's making priorities and choices, and that's also saying no to a lot of stuff which is happening. There's a lot of shiny objects today.
I would even add something to that. Like you both kind of touched on leadership and kind of like our role and responsibility, or up to the CEO level of like where AI has a place in your go-to-market. And I think like it's at the discretion of leadership, right? So like part of it is like us talking about it amongst fellow leaders about the emergence of AI and how important it is. And then none of us want to be the people that are saying, well, I'm not doing this, but you know, these 3 other companies that are slightly larger us and are growing at a faster rate are using this, so that must be the answer. Well, the reality is like that might be a small part of the answer, but I think Michael Smart said something like, or no, Cone, you said it. Cone, like if your data is not good, your processes are not good, like AI will make it far worse. Like you have to have your systems in place to where you can actually effectively deploy a product within your own company to have success and to see efficiencies there. If you think that buying a tool and then it's going to say, hey, because it's AI, it's going to easily integrate to your CRM and it's going to easily integrate to your, you know, to your team performance, like, but you haven't already been doing that well, like AI, I don't think eradicates those problems. And so ultimately it comes down to being able to say confidently that as a leader of a go-to-market team, whether you have 2 people or 100 people, that something is going to make those 2 people or 100 people more efficient, or you're going to be able to do more with less. And so I think like it really does come down to us to be able to say like, this is a tool, or this is a process, or this is kind of like a routine that we're going to start to do. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen over a week or a month, but we're looking at what is this going to do for us in 6 months, in a year. So I think a lot of it does come down to that kind of like leadership element. Like if a leader's just saying, hey, we're going to do this, well, people are going to do it. But if that starts to marginalize people that might not have a need to use AI in their day-to-day, they're like, well, is my job obsolete now? So I think it's a very delicate balance.
Yeah, and if you reflect on yourself, right, like about that sort of like delicate balance, and think about your processes and where AI could play a role. Like, are there like specific things that you're doing yourself already right now, Jordan, where you say to the team like, hey, with this sort of like process, including AI, we can be more efficient. And maybe on top of it, like maybe you thought it and it wasn't, or maybe it is. Like, I'm curious about that.
I'll say one that's like probably most people, this is not going to be brand new information, but one thing that I have felt has been a good example of AI being implemented into our processes. And this also took training of a model. It took, right, it wasn't just like buy this, pay your fee, and now like we have another SaaS tool. Like we we have like a business account for ChatGPT. And one of the things that we really did decide to lean in on, and it wasn't like, let's do 3 at once. It was like, let's do 1 really well. We're a HubSpot shop, not Salesforce. Crazy. But we have 10 AEs in the US. And across those 10 AEs, one of the things that we knew was a very real time suck was, and I'm like militant about this, is putting the right, we're a medic shop. So putting the right information into that. We have a really fine-tuned medic, kind of like you rank it on 1 to 4. You have to put in open text. It gives you an algorithm. And through that percentage that you get, you can forecast fairly effectively. But it takes, as we're scaling and we have people that have 20, 30, 40 open ops in their pipeline, that's a lot of information to be putting in after a demo and maintaining throughout a 3-month sales cycle. So what we did was we used Gong, and we were able to say, well, we're going to have this ChatGPT pull the transcript from Gong. And then we're going to be able to effectively put it in to Medic. And so, wow, beautiful, right? So I'm giving you kind of both ends. It was beautiful. It worked out well. 95% accuracy. You have to read through it. And so that was wonderful, right? Now we have all these beautiful MEDDIC scores in our opportunities. Well, let's look at the dark side. No one retains that information if it's being put into your CRM anyway, right? Without you having to manually put that in. So conceptual understanding, like Magma thrives, we are the show your work tool in mathematics. If you're not showing your work, you're not remembering. Too much gamification. The same thing goes with inputs into your CRM, into HubSpot, right? Or to Salesforce or whatever it is you're using. If you're not putting that information in yourself, actually typing it in, reading it, making sure that you can do this, being able to regurgitate that in a pipeline review, well, how are you able to effectively tell of the 30 different ops you're managing what pain you're solving for in each of those 30 different ops? And so if you can't do that, then does that actually, like, instead of seeing, wow, I've got all this great information, you can't regurgitate that. This is still a human B2B based business where we're talking to people. And so you have to like scramble to look at your notes. Well, I see this, and then it's almost like you're not leading that call. So I would say it's good that saved us hours and hours of time to be able to have this information like in HubSpot at the click of a button, you drag it in. But the downside is that you're not actually like retaining that. So it actually is it actually removing your ability as a human to sell effectively? So I would say there's this kind of gift and curse mentality in one example that we're using.
Yeah, I like that. Like it was, I believe it was like last week or the report from MIT about critical thinking, and especially if you're in like being in math. As a kid, I've got 3 kids. Like you learn first like do a sort of like estimation when it comes to like large numbers mathematics, right? So 18 times 34 is roughly 600. That you at least have an idea of like, okay, what's happening within that sort of like a bracket of knowledge, and ensuring that critical thinking is really important because we have, for instance, sort of like those AI research agents for prospecting, and I always say to the team like you really need to be hyper careful about like what it's telling you. Because it's not always 100% correct. For instance, information about a company. I knew from one lead that headquarters was in this case in Sweden, but it said it was headquarters in Netherlands. So I said to the agents, "You're incorrect. The headquarters isn't in the Netherlands." And then it said like, yeah, you're correct. It's in Germany. I said, no, it's also not in Germany. Like, look it up again.
It's hallucinating.
And it was like, oh yeah, you're right. It's in Sweden. So like you still like you need to make sure that also as a rep or as a user in this case from that information that you still keep that sort of like critical thinking. So I definitely agree with this. Like back in the day, they always say like scribble your notes because then it keeps in your mind. I like that example. I like it.
And I would just like comment like really quickly to wrap up that piece. Like Michael said something kind of like, is there a fix for this issue as orgs try to scale AI adoption? Like I don't have a great answer for that, right? Like I wish I did. I think like ultimately, if I said, are we more or less efficient with implementing a trained, GPT tool to intake our conversations from Gong into HubSpot and have that live there? Maybe not for that particular deal cycle, but for kind of like a closed lost resurgence, like whatever. Yeah, I think there is an elevation. Like I think we have made our worlds more efficient, but it has also added more work to the plate of myself or managers to be able to effectively run a pipeline review, right? Because if we knew that like you can in some ways handle more opportunities, but the brain can only retain so much more information, right? So like if AI is used effectively to allow us to be able to use fewer people with more opportunities to potentially build your business, then yes, there's a net positive. But I don't know that we're there just yet. I think we're still at the infancy of this type of stuff.
Yeah, and maybe the last point on this one, then it also comes down to how are you set up your processes to work with alongside AI? How are you enable like to that point? And let that drag too much into Gong and forecasting, but the same thing. So we are big fans of Gong. We have Gong layered over our Salesforce. We do all our forecasting. We do all our deal reviews only through Gong. We don't, and we also have medics. So what we found very important when we do deal reviews is the rep can only, we always do it like with the team, obviously, so that he pull or she pulls up like the playbook, and there's gong suggestions on the M or the E, the D, like where they already are improvements. But we always have in our process that they need to go over the most critical elements depending where we are in the deal, early stage, mid stage, end stage, where we really do the deal review, so that it connects towards that brain. And I think that's really important how you put the process. The same with our forecasting, even though also when I'm forecasting up to my VP and CRO, because of course we have big companies, so we have different layers. We leverage AI in all elements from Gong, but it's the explanation that really, and the detail behind, which is a human thing, because you know the latest on the process or the tactics, that together combined makes a strong confidence. Are we hitting plan? Yes or no, right? So it's again processes and enablement.
So a question to you, Koen, because you you always host like a lot of the sessions with other Pavilion leaders. So you talk to a lot of like GTM leaders. Do you see folks, so GTM leaders, underestimate the human side when they implement AI?
I mean, first of all, when you ask about where are you when it comes to implementing AI to any kind of GTM leader, I mean, kind of, Doc, I'm shocked sometimes that we are not so mature when it comes to AI. A lot of people actually don't go further than, hey, I'm still using in the ChatGPT for some asks and I have some summaries, or hey, my note taker. I may hope that now everything is recorded, because it's insane when it helps you to directly follow up with your lead or a prospect or what have you. So first of all, I actually really dislike the level of maturity, and there's actually the lack, like the fact that we as leaders don't take. I must even say, like, I think you need to spend 30 minutes a day, and I think that's even not enough as a leader, playing around with AI, not asking questions to ChatGPT. No, playing around, understanding what it can do and how it can increase your productivity for your team. Because if you don't lead, they will lead, and with they is the people, and I have all respect for that. But like, do they really understand how we want to scale as an organization? So the thing what we've done, and we were also within Personia maybe a little bit late when it comes to the AI show, but at least we said like, hey, we need to lead from a leadership perspective, from a company perspective. So up from the CRO, we had like a full AI week, and not as one department, no cross-functional. And we really enabled the people, and not only on, with all respect, OpenAI. We also need to look towards the European competitors like Mistral or Gemini, and what are the different models? What is the differences? And then in group cross-functional, we started playing around to make impact further than your department, because that's also the challenge. Then we, as let's say revenue leaders or marketing leaders, we are going to apply agents or AI tooling for specifically our department. But then, CSM, AM, RevOps, finance, they're also going to apply all these incremental.
That will just create silos back again, right?
The same thing, but then with agents. And
exactly.
And let's be honest, the bigger we grow, all our data is still not fully correct on our back end, in general for companies. And we're putting all those AIs on top. It's going to be a shit show, let's be honest. So also there, you as a company need to really provide like this holistic layer. And that's like what also said, and that needs to come from pure C leadership, and you need to lead. So back to your question, Doc, like not enough. And I'm actually wondering, I don't know if that's a question we can ask to each other, but like, what are, next to note taker, summaries, medic scores, or whatever sales methodology you're using, or forecasting, what are truly impactful use cases you've seen so far outside of the generic ones that really, really hit hard and be efficient in go-to-market today? I'm actually very curious.
I would add one more, and maybe this is also like fairly generic, but there are companies that are coming out. Basically they help you scrape the internet for like RFPs and bids. So if you're a business where you're looking to kind of like expand on larger deals or things that go beyond a threshold, like it used to be, certain companies, they have like this database and they can tell you which companies are engaged if it's if it's publicly accessible. But in education,
you mean like tenders or RFPs or
tenders. Sorry, tenders.
Okay,
tenders,
okay, cool.
RFPs, bids, exactly. So We're actually looking at one right now, which we're fairly excited about, but it's still one of those things you need to test out, like how accurate is it? But Cone, to your point, like there is a world where you can leverage it outside of your go-to-market like playbook as you're looking at your own internal tools, but you can also use it to like source new business. So I think there is a world where it can like help you generate like different types of opportunities. One we're looking at is called Starbridge. And so they've been someone that they're actually based here in New York. And so we're looking at this. Bastian's saying there's a Sequesto, good for me to look into. But I mean, we're a European company with a US operation or North American operation. But I'd say that's one to add to like what I would assume people are still exploring.
Yeah, I love that one. I think so. Currently, we are testing out in the business where I'm working part time. Also, a cross-functional thing is that we have kind of created the tender team and actually train and build an agent in order to answer these tenders and also actually write the stuff up. So it's a quite a big instruction and quite some documentation is being fed. We are currently in the stage of testing it. So, for example, you drop in lots of paperwork, and then it formulates already if it's qualified based on your ICP and so on, which you put in. But also it looks at formulating what are best questions to ask in the initial process when you have the opportunity to ask questions and so on. So we are currently at that stage. But it's already getting people enthusiastic, right? And that's most likely a good sign first, right? So people don't feel that they need to do this now all by themselves and crawl through all these stuff. But they have now actually a buddy which they can ask questions to. But I think up to your point earlier, Doc, it's very, very critical that you just not take the information that it's analyzing for granted. For example, they ask for very specific certifications that you have and so on. That's not the level of detail that we trained that thing on. So you always need to dig a little bit deeper, and then you need obviously human expertise for that.
Yeah,
and actually you need to have deciders, not doers, right? Not I throw it in that stuff and then it comes out and then I put it into the tender desk. Blah blah. You need to have people who can actually decide on stuff which is coming out.
And you know what the best thing is obviously on an individual level, I've playing around with AI for 2.5 years. The best thing you can ask is just like what you're doing with sales reps, like you're asking extra layered questions. You go deeper to why. It's the same thing what you do when you talk to your model.
Yeah.
Come up with an explanation. Hey, I really need it in this context. What are you potentially missing? What would you add? What would you change? And then you will see the iteration then it starts to, so the more context you provide with it, of course, it really becomes better. But that's the same. But if you take, hey, what is your forecast? Yeah, and let's take it and put it up the chain. Right? That's just not the way it's.
Exactly. You need to have a conversation with these agents, right? Sometimes by the end of the day, I've had more conversations with these agents than with my wife. Yeah, that's currently the situation.
That's for sure. I mean, I'm in a car and I talk more to AI than it's scary sometimes.
I would say even to like one thing that was touched upon here is like also like the I think Koen, you said you forecast almost exclusively through Gong. Like what I'm still, and maybe this is me being kind of like an old school person, like we do that. We do, I have like the 2 sales managers that are actually pulling like best case and commit still, like we're doing that kind of like old school. And then we're doing like a HubSpot, their own AI forecast. So we're like triangulating 3 different things. And sometimes they're meeting pretty close, but sometimes they are so wildly off. You're like, you can get confused. So I think, like we are very much in the infancy of that. Like, I think if you just straight up I think you just said it like, what was it? Doers versus deciders. Like if you're just like, imagine if you just said, hey, give me a forecast. You're like, got you boss. And you go and you give them the forecast and you just, I click this, here's your forecast. And I'm like, okay, tell me about it. And they're like, what do you mean? You can see it all right here. It's like, we're missing the point of what efficient.
No, Jordan, that's the moment you can replace that person with an AI agent. Like then there's no these are use cases. Okay, then you can reply.
I know. Yeah. Part of me still likes my brain though,
I get that. Yeah. No, this is exactly the case that happened too. I just had an email of my CFO. He said like, "Hey, I look at it like this, like this forecasting, your forecasting, it's off. Like, what's going on here, right?" So the one thing that he's using is some sort of like AI modeling, and I just like use my brain and obviously a couple criteria that you're always using, and then we need to have the conversation. So I love that. So we like. I'm not gonna tout about like Nepo, but I think that garbage in, garbage out I think is the most important thing. It was always the case also with the CRM, right? It's the same with the knowledge that you provide to any AI. What we internally have is that within our Slack instance, you have the ability to talk to agents, to Nepo, and we give them obviously names, and they connect it to our Notion. Notion AI is also pretty good, but it lives in the place where people directly have access. Like we all live in Slack, so like then it's like easy to just ask like hey, can you a little bit of this information? Hey, I know we have like something going on right now. Can you give me more about this? Deep links to where we need to be and go, and that's being used by everyone within the org. So information is easier accessible. It's more automation than AI, to be honest. But it is artificial intelligence, and that's I think always the difficult. Like, where is it AI and where is it automation? That's for me like the like we use a lot of like N8N and automation within the org, and if I peel it off, there's maybe a fraction is really AI and the rest is like really automation.
Yeah, but like let's break down what AI really is. I mean, it is an evolution eventually of automation.
Yeah.
And it just really like where we typically do the input. That's now also if you really prompt it very well, you have very good LLMs, because that's also the problem. Like if you use all the generic data from yourself, you get garbage out because it's like a very large language model. But and then it fills out what we typically as human people fill in before. Yeah, I mean that's a piece of AI, but it is automation. It's just giving us more time back for what we should really do is customer facing time, right? So
so if you think about like customer facing time and capacity, you have like all these stories about these companies, not all these stories, like a couple companies that go to 100 million with 5-6 folks, etc. And obviously a lot of like founders or organizations want to be super efficient, but do you already see that trying to do more with less and the less is also being taken on by with AI? Do you see impact on people already, like that you see that you ask more from your folks in the 40-hour work week or 50-hour work week that they have because you implemented better processes and on top of it AI, so as a leader you think they can do more? Is that something that you see yourself doing or not really?
Yeah, I think so. I would say that's like it's not a direct, like I don't think that it's fair to potentially just answer that categorically as if any of us knows the answer, because you're going to have a few companies that can scale so quickly with 10 people faster than anything ever grown, and you're just like, is this the way? Well, I don't know that that's true. Like that's one if you're going after the entire world of TAM. So in our world, like we sell into education, we work with school districts, municipalities. We have to be really careful about what we talk about with AI. Like, we're talking about the Department of Education in the US, like power moving from federal to state, states having more autonomy. There are bills that we are tracking in certain states that are deciding if AI is going to be allowed in the state, right? The reality is that's not actually going to happen. But there is a strong resistance to AI. So if we're talking about internal and what we do at Magma, we have a team of people I'll just say this. I have not seen, I think the AI SDR can work in some pieces of business. The AI SDR would fall flat on its face in education. If you're trying to talk to an education leader, you're looking for that to be whether it's inbound or outbound. Like these conversations have to be human to human. If you're in any sort of industry that is so relationship heavy, in person, we do a lot of in-person stuff. We cannot deploy an AI SDR that is acting as a human if we want to feel like we're building a brand. If you're a startup, you have one bad experience with an influential person in an industry, like see you later, right? Like they're going to write you off. So I think like from my perspective, I think there's a lot of pressure added internally because we need to be more efficient. Like there are not like, you know, indispensable funds, right? But like, but it's not as linear as like yes or no. I think everyone's feeling the pressure, but in our case, the AI piece is something we are using a lot internally, and we have it baked all throughout our platform. But we're super careful about when we actually use the word AI or the acronym.
Yeah.
And the only thing on this topic, like it is not or AI or the SDR. I
exactly.
Really we should really think more in conjunction of this kind of thing, because like to your point, Doc, like I was actually to our RevOps for next year, I said like, listen, we really need to start drafting our 2026 plan. I mean, come on, like we are at the end of my Q2, right? So before we even know, we get really already in the 2026 planning.
Yeah.
Where should we apply AI to become more efficient? Because you know how quickly it goes when it comes to the development of AI. And I don't know to what extent you've seen, like, for instance, OneMind.com. I think you are familiar with OneMind. I mean, and you have competitors there. Like I know Jacco back on GTM 2024 last year in Austin, that he was presenting this on stage, right? And if you see where it is right now, so I had, for instance, with my leadership team 2 weeks ago, I did the kickoff of AI. I said like, we need to lead, and we are already too late, but we need to lead, and therefore, and I say like, hey, I just want to show you where I think our SMB motion will go quite quickly. And I showed OneMind, and I said like, start talking to the person, to Mindy, and if you feed Mindy, and then just to your point, Jordan, with really, really all the top-notch data which you have available anyhow in your company, you record. That's why also I want everything recorded, new business, existing business, because I'm a cross-functional leader. I want to have and go on record if the customer consents. And we have so much rich data. Feed this all into what I call now also Mindy. And eventually she can have the first initial conversation, because the customer is on your website. Of course, education, when you set different sales cycles, you need to build relationships. But the moment he or she wants to ask you something, I don't want that the prospect is needing to wait for any of the four of us as a rep to answer that question. I want the prospect to have the conversation with the AI, but I want to have the human in the loop. That means if it derails towards more specific use cases, and that's what I think OneMind also showed as a use case, it can directly pop you up in Slack and say like, hey, Koen, now you need to jump on the call. And we have together a conversation, prospect, Koen, and the AI. And I strongly believe in this, like these kind of transfers where where maybe AI does the first part of the conversation, but then I'm on speed dial and directly I'm pulled in, because then the human element comes into play. And I think this is also
it's part of a workflow, right? Then it's a part of an AI human-based workflow with clear directional feedback as well, and it's a top priority from leadership, right? So that probably makes it very essential. Because I wanted to delve a little bit
one second to piggyback on that, because I think like there's still it still relates to sort of like fundamental things that we all know, like time kills all deals, right? So they ask you answer kind of things. Like if you are fast and correct with answering those questions, you can win those deals, and that's like how you need indeed use AI in conjunction. Like keep the human in loop, making sure that you can answer as quickly as possible. And I get obviously what you're saying, Jordan, also about like different industries that you're selling to, persona, ICP, etc. And I also want to go back, like, I don't know, like 10, 12 years ago. Like I had like 10 reps that 4 days a week drove in their cars, and Wednesday they came back and they had to set like 8 meetings again for the next week. Eventually, we moved them to online calls. At first, they said like we could never sell, but ultimately we did more with the same amount of reps, because we made it more efficient. And I think there's also a time and place when things are when your buyer is ready for it. And I think that's the third. Like, you always need to keep in mind, like, who's your buyer and how do they want to buy, and that's the true connection and where you fit in, like, AI. In this case
I would just, and I think like that's a great, like, those are all great responses. Like one thing for me, it's like there's another kind of thought that comes to mind about like the application of AI being able to do part of that conversation. I think that's like a segmentation conversation as well. So like if we're talking, so at Magma, we sell large 6-figure deals, we sell 10, 15, 20K deals. I think in those smaller deals,
GTM motion, right? So,
we're talking about like, we're talking about, yes, we don't want to deploy 4 different humans to sell a 20K deal. If you can have someone tee that up, and like Koen, you're saying, you can jump in with that conversation, 100%, no disagreement there. If you have a conversation with someone who holds a budget of $1 billion and you're looking to get $500,000 from them, like, maybe, and they live in Texas, no, like, it would literally be the kiss of death. Not because they're not AI forward, they might actually use ChatGPT, but if they feel like they've taken the time to speak with a company that's worked for 6 months to get that conversation, and the first thing that they do, it's like, you know, hello, I'm, you know, blah, 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 a virtual assistant with Magma. They're going to be like, are you serious? You know, like it's, so there's a one where it just, right now it doesn't work. The other thing, Koen, I had a question for you, like, and if we can't dig into this too deep right now, I know we're kind of 13 minutes left, but like, what happens? Like, AI assistant on the call, and then you're on speed dial. You jump in, you're like, hey, by the way, what's up? I'm a human. Like, how does that work?
I will do it right now.
Like, seriously, so like, you know, like there's a customer, a prospect that has a question for you. You've got an AI on the phone, or they're answering that question. Are you talking about a live call, or are you talking about like back and forth? So a live call happens, and then you jump in and you, like, what is that talk track to like mitigate that gap from AI to human?
I think, and again, it is just what we as humans are not, or like, it's the kind of the unknown, because we are not used to it yet, right? Like, a year ago, I didn't like voice prompting because it felt awkward, because I was still thinking about Siri, and I never had a very good relationship with Siri. But I can tell you now, and I know what the name is of my GPT. I don't type to my GPTs anymore. I've built, like, I think 25 GPTs. But that's the thing, though. Like, it never really got into the, which is, it wasn't like, And now I only talk towards my GPTs, and I mean that's just me now. I can accept it. So also to your point, like your Texas CEO level, most likely not yet, but the buyers of tomorrow will be already like Gen Zs, and they are okay doing it in this way. And then maybe, like in our previous company, we were selling video software to banks, insurers, and we actually transformed that. You could from chat to video escalation. That means when the priority was high enough, where we need to solve it, but we need to have like a relationship on video, we could from chat directly pull into the contact center someone from the video, and you were sitting there. So I think it's also, are we starting accepting this? And of course, there are a few minorities who start accepting this at the start, maybe lower ACV, Gen Z, I don't know. But that will evolve quickly. That's also what we saw in the transition. They said like, mortgage advising. Yeah, no, we need to do that like physically in the store. Hell no.
It's a great point, right? It's like the like paper mail versus email shift. This is probably one of those big kind of moments that does take a lot of
faster than ever.
Yeah, exactly.
That's where I want us to think about, because we can't wait. I mean, that's what Jason says. Jason says next year, all the calls will be with an AI. All the sales calls will be with AI on it. And I can argue, but it will be there. And I want all of us to be prepared, even if we are enterprise. Yes, it will take more time, but we still need to think about like, hey, but what potential impact does it have, and where can it help?
I'd love to see this. I'd love to watch this recording in 15 years. Hey, remember when we said AI SDRs don't work?
I feel like
in 1 year we will do it with our AI avatars. And we can just drink beers in New York or Amsterdam. That's fine.
Nobody knows. We're like Wall-E. We're all flying in that ship, right? Being fed and
I think like, but I will say, like, while I'm kind of making this claim that like that wouldn't work in our industry, industry, like I stand by that in a lot of ways. Like I'm not suggesting that the software, the AI world that as we are starting to kind of learn about is not moving in that direction. But if we're talking about like the topic of this, this particular kind of fireside chat, the dark side of efficiency, like, I mean, part of that too, like I'm actually not even familiar with how much that would cost to purchase that. Like how much cheaper is it if you can find a team of humans that are going to be high producers in a city that isn't a particularly expensive city? Like how much cheaper is that AI? And like ultimately it probably becomes even more cheap, right? So eventually it still kind of leads to the same piece. But like right now, like today, even in 2026, like as a go-to-market leader, we're opening an office in Michigan next month. First one outside of New York. Part of that is a strategic play because it's a Grand Rapids is an easier city for us from a financial perspective. But like, do I trust those humans for the next 2 years versus an AI that can do part of the conversation? Like if they have a network in education, if we know that education historically is a fairly antiquated industry, super antiquated. So you pop in the newest form of AI to them, they're going to be like, I literally don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right. So I think there's just like, it's okay to have different perspectives or different times in which you're like applying this. But if you hear someone like Jason talk about the future is now and you need to buy this and you're like, you buy it and then it flops, you're like, well, yeah, that's part of the problem. Like the hype is creating this urgency that some people are going slower than others, but I don't think that the slowness means that they're slow.
And I think that's actually a fair and a good point, right? So it's probably also always a balance, right, between productivity gains, but also at what cost does that come, right, from the actual people in the organization. So so we talked about when things are done right? So there's a clear priority from leadership. There's an AI workflow and so on, and people are all happily onboarded on it, and the AI agents as well. But people are in a different stage, right? And where some of these are actually just popping out more output, and it's very much task driven. So question maybe for you, Koen, what signals tell you that your team is actually tuning out more or less, that it's kind of overwhelming for them almost?
Yeah, less is more, right? So I think you as a leader, you should protect that when it comes to AI, that you throw everything over the fence. I think you need to make it very practical. Like, and that's the thing. Like getting back towards the Jason conversation. Jason, of course, from his position, can talk about it very nicely. But I think it's up to us as GTM leaders that we need to show again, like where. So the example, and that's also for my team. So we listed now with my team, like last, not yesterday, the week before, with the marketing leader, SDR leader, AE leader, customer success account management leader, and our partner manager. Like that's like for our Benelux operation, let's say all leadership. And we said like, name me your 3 core tasks where you now spend so much time wasted with your team, which you actually want to make more efficient. And I said, okay, 3. Okay, now for next week, I want you to break down only one use case, the most impactful one in your department, right? So we break it already down for 5 people for 5 use cases. And then I said like, and then we are going to debate and we're going to see where we do it cross-functional, because it should not let for your department, it should be cross-functional. And then eventually we go for new business, and for existing business, we are selecting one use case on AI. And that one we are going to lead, we are going to execute. And if we understand the impact, then we go towards the people. So I think that's also the thing. We need to break it down. We need to really, it's the same thing with new things in fancy toolings which you're using. Is the core what is working, do more what's working. We have the data, do that, be more efficient. And always have this layer of 10, 20% where you experiment. But take this away from your people. Let not, of course, you can involve them in your project group, but please don't let them do all the experimenting, because let's be honest, it's not about how much AI did you have implement. What is your ARR per employee? Are we increasing efficiency and productivity? That's what we need to look at, and not like, how fancy, we've like implemented 3 AI tools, and 90% of my people are using AI. That's not the answer.
100%. I think what you actually will probably see then is that it's very much only focused around the output, right? And I think you actually want, with the AI, you want to create room for more creativity as well.
Yeah. My key use case, and that's not the per se AI. I mean, maybe you don't know, but like I'm a big fan of digital sales rooms. Like I want, after a conversation with my customer, if it's a prospect, early stage, mid stage, end stage, also when it's an existing customer, after the conversation, I want a transcript directly into the digital sales room. And actually the email should go out, or email actually should be one link directly sent towards the customer with a summary, with the next steps, with like our mutual action plan, wherever we are in the funnel. And why should a rep be bothered with this kind of stuff? We've already discussed this over the email. So I want AI to pick this up. I want AI to update automatically the mutual action plan. I want AI to automatically send an email with the one link so we can continue the conversation in the digital sales room. That to me is efficiency. That's like not where the AE should spend much time, or the AM or whatever, but it drives the conversation for the customer. I think there's a lot of convenience. Like these are things where I'm really trying to geek out in, like, hey, where can we win efficiency there? Because then the rep can focus on better preparation for the next call. And that's for me, like, an extreme use case of efficiency.
I think Megan just said something really, she said something that's like exactly, I think what we're kind of like, we're all swirling around here. Like she's talking about a healthcare tech business that deploying AI can work well. And it's exactly what I'm saying, kind of like if you're able to isolate where that AI SDR will be deployed, in my case, I'm saying, in the velocity component of that business, right? At least for now. It's not to say that it can't serve a purpose in other functions. AI serves a purpose in every deal that we work, by the way, for the record, right? Like we are using a lot internally. I'm just kind of talking about some of the big ones that are the hot topics that, we just replaced our workforce with AI and we grew by 500% in a week. It's like, come on, man. Like, you gotta like read between the lines. Like,
and that's the 1%.
I think that's
the 1%. We need to focus that we are just the mediocre GTM companies.
Yeah, but like that's it's a great way. Like if you have a high touch human interaction based business, no matter if it's antiquated or forward thinking, the human plays a major role. And so I think there's this balance that we need to figure out of like, where do we go? Like, what does this world? It's like you said, Koen, like we're planning, if you haven't started planning for 2026, then you're behind at this point, right? So like part of that planning should be a dedicated piece that probably didn't exist in kind of annual planning for AI, right? Not just in your product, but like, where are those pieces of the puzzle? It doesn't to me yet mean that we're going to do 50% more with 50% less, but it does mean that we can start to think about like more efficiency. Like, so if you said, hey, how do we double our plan? We'll double the humans. Well, that's probably not the case anymore, right? Like, I think we can all agree on that, but it might not be, we can do double with with 1%. Like, so I think there's just like this, it's the conversations like this to me that keep me sparked, right? Like Kuna, like even like I've learned stuff from you on this. It's just like, we have to be able to like unpack that. It's not just like, if you hear one statement from me today and you're like, okay, I should do that. Like, don't do that, like unpack how that actually impacts your own business.
And maybe, and that's the thing, we should stop talking about it. We should really go into the weeds. What I love as well, like we're trying as well with Pavilion in Amsterdam, in the chapter, right? Jeroen and Doug, like we need to be more practical. We need to go around the room and maybe we should actually do this. Like what is the use case? Where in the funnel? Who made for your context? ACV, motion, size, whatever, the impact, and share that use case among each other, and we can learn, because that's what's missing. Where do we really see these efficiency gains?
It's like I think right now, like I was proud to talk about some of the things that we're using AI on, but it's like we don't need to be proud. Like we don't need to be like, hey, this is the newest thing I'm doing. It's like, let's just like actually put our cards on the table. Like if we want to help each other out, it's not about what you're doing better. Most of us don't compete with each other anyway. So it's like,
and even if we do, come on, we learn from each other. I invite my competitors over to the office just to see like how they are doing things, and we learn from each other. And
100%.
It's eventually about execution, right? It's not like on the fancy toolings.
Love that. Right, Doc. I think we're slightly going towards the end, right? Do we maybe have time for one question or so?
No, I think what Koen said, right? So if everyone would give like either one use case or one tip right now for the audience when it comes to how to implement AI or be aware of a certain pitfall, what would you say? Jordan, you wanna
Sure.
start?
I'll try to tie it back to like the title, dark side of efficiency. I think like rather than another practical use case of how AI is being used, I would say like take the time to like sit down with your team and understand what what is their take on AI? Like how comfortable are they? Is it a young like we have SDRs and I'm super proud of them. Like are they intimidated by this conversation, right? Are they looking elsewhere? Are they looking to leave software altogether because they're, afraid that their job is going to be, eradicated if they don't get to AE in the next year? Like sit down with people, like let them know, like, hey, teach me, right? Like the youngest generation that we're talking about not having this, like, I think one thing we didn't talk about was the track, the typical track to like leadership or AE. It's usually through
Yeah.
SDR. So if the SDR is gone, like how do you get to be an AE? How do you start that?
Yeah.
How do you start that process? So I think just like sit down with your team and really understand like where they're at, because you might learn a thing or two, and then you'll probably be taught about how you should be building the plan. So I would say like make sure you don't look at AI as the full human replacement, at least not right now.
Yeah. Koen?
Yeah, I mean, come on, like we can't improve here. Like, like on the topic of Jordan, and I think that's also how we started. We asked the question, how do you see AI, and what do you fear about AI? And I asked it our leadership, and actually, the leadership said like, I'm scared. I really think it come from my job, and if leadership is already scared, well, then we need to have like other conversations first before we go into fancy tools, right? So, and so to add towards this point, for me, it's like indeed have this human conversation. Start enabling your leaders. Don't let it come bottom up, but do it top down. And one thing I want to give there is a shiny tool. So we in our company implemented Langdoc, which is a Berlin startup. Langdoc, Langdock, so doc. Which they actually do because everyone is now pulling into OpenAI and everyone gets like a pro license, whatever. But what these kind of tools, these are kind of like aggregating tools. You connect all your different tool sets internally in your organization towards this aggregator AI platform. It has all the models. And there, what we do is we share prompt libraries, we share assistants. So we have indeed for legal and for all these kind of things, but it's built by our legal department for our reps. So we really cross-functional building assistants. And our engineers are also there sometimes to really make it more into like agent-like. So we are connecting tools, etc. So on a weekly basis, and we now also track like the usage, and we are incentivizing the entire organization to do so. So let people play around with it. Let make the mistakes, and I think do that in a safe. And safe is very important when it comes to data exposing towards the OpenAI server. This is what, and again, that needs to come from us top down. We need to guide. So I think that's also a very important one. Lead by example, walk the walk.
Absolutely.
And don't be scared.
Yeah.
Don't be scared. Exactly. Yeah.
Awesome.
Love that.
I love these two. Maybe want to contribute to. I think we talked about indeed in the context of both you, Jordan and Koen touched upon that, right? But I think margin is very relevant, not in the context as in money, but in does your team have enough margin actually, and that means in the emotional and cognitive space to reflect, innovate, and connect on this, right? If it's just pushed out on a set of tools towards them, it makes them overwhelming. And I think to Koen's point also, it's looking at also from a performance standpoint with people. It's about the value per person that is being delivered, right? Or the revenue per person. I think my view is also look at it from a value per person, and maybe even a little bit more broader, and not in the volume game that we played, right? In Growth at All Cost, where it was more about a volume per platform or channel or so.
Yeah. Yeah, at Neeple we are AI first company, right? So I think if I look at like what we try to do, we try to like enable our team as good as we can from a learning perspective. So we also have like what is it once a month a sort of like AI learning session from our engineers, just to talk about the latest and greatest that's happening, etc. How we use AI ourselves, what is possible, what we think is possible in the next couple of weeks, and try to do like a hackathon every quarter on where we within the buyer journey can use AI to be more efficient, to really basically reduce the, I don't want to say stress, but give people time back to do the things that they like, that they want to do. In this case, like for sales folks and for CSM, having time for your customers, for engineers, making sure that you can think about like creative new stuff, be able to launch new functionality that our customers want. And for leadership, for instance, think about like, okay, how can we bridge that gap about like forecasting where the CFO and I are off? Like, how can we build a system that is truly correct? So those are the things that we are thinking of and doing. Cool. I think we're
Awesome,
over
man.
time, right?
Yeah.
I think we're running over time. I think otherwise we will be kicked out by Melanie. But no.
we weren't that efficient. Yeah.
She's like,
no, all good, all good. So
you see this new piece of AI? Check this out.
Yeah, I love that.
I just have an analog watch. Like it's also providing me with time. I can talk to it for hours. It doesn't talk back. Like lovely.
Love it. So no, thanks guys for joining us in this convo, and
see you in 3 months probably, because then the world's maybe different.
Yeah, exactly.
That's true.
Exactly. All right. Thanks everybody for joining in.
Gentlemen, thank you.
And we'll see you next time at episode 22.